between Moscow and St. Petersburg. Lake Valdai, 12 miles of ancient wilderness, sacred ground for the Iverski monastery. But something else hides along the eastern bank. Satellite images reveal a sprawling compound stretching more than 2 miles. Roads cut through dense forest. Mansions rise behind layers of security. Hangars shelter helicopters, and scattered across the property, 6 anti-aircraft missile systems ringing the estate like a fortress. This is one of Vladimir Putin's private residences. The compound has its own train station. An armored locomotive pulls in regularly, carrying the president away from the Kremlin and into the shadows. But something in the imagery catches investigators off guard. A playground with swings and slides sits beside a go-kart track, structures built for young children. Putin has 2 daughters from his marriage to Lyudmila, Maria and Katerina, both around 40 years old. He divorced Lyudmila in 2013. Since then, he appears alone at state functions. The Kremlin insists the president lives a solitary life. So, who plays on that playground? The questions begin. Russian investigative reporter Ilya Rojdestvensky works for the Dossier Center, founded by exiled oligarch Mikhail Khodorkovsky. The center investigates corruption at the highest levels of the Russian government. Ilya left Russia months before the invasion of Ukraine. The Ministry of Justice designated him a foreign agent, enemy of the state. He knows the danger and investigates anyway. For 18 months, he searches for answers and digs through leaked databases, flight records, financial documents, transactions tied to Putin's pilots, yacht staff, teachers, dog trainers, hundreds on the payroll. But the children remain invisible. Their names appear in zero databases. Every trail leads to a dead end. Then, in summer 2023, Ilya gains access to financial records from companies handling payments for Putin's private estates. He reaches out to people on the payroll. One agrees to talk. An informant on the Lake Valdai estate, close to the family, witness to what the Kremlin wants to hide. But there is more. 2 other children live on the property. 2 boys. Their names are Ivan and Vladimir Jr., sons of Vladimir Putin. Finally, proof. The secret sons are real. Ivan is 10 years old. Vladimir Jr. is 6. They live at Lake Valdai, hidden from the world, protected by the Federal Security Service. Ilya has photographs. He keeps them private to protect the children. The boys exist in 0 databases. They appear in 0 public records. Since birth, they have carried cover documents, the kind issued to spies and people under state protection. Only close relatives know their exact birthdays. They are the most secretive children in Russia, and their father is the most powerful man in the country. June 2001. The Kremlin. Vladimir Putin stands at a podium, presenting state awards to Russia's finest athletes. Among them, a teenage gymnast with dark hair and fierce eyes, Alina Kabaeva, 18 years old, already a rising star. Putin hands her the Order of Friendship. After the Games, Olympians gather for a presidential reception. Putin congratulates the champions personally. He and Kabaeva are photographed again. They appear together at ceremonies and events across Russia, always professional and in public. But whispers begin circulating through Moscow's elite circles. March 2008. Kabaeva appears on a Russian talk show. The host asks if she has found her ideal man. Kabaeva smiles and confirms her ideal man exists, though she keeps his identity secret. Weeks later, the Moskovsky Correspondent newspaper publishes an explosive story. Putin has secretly separated from his wife, Lyudmila. He plans to marry 24-year-old Alina Kabaeva. The story spreads across Russian media. Western journalists corner Putin at a formal event in Italy. They press him about Kabaeva. He snaps back. I have always disliked people who stick their snotty noses and erotic fantasies into other people's lives. He denies everything. The Kremlin issues furious statements. 2 days later, the Moscow correspondent shuts down. Official reason: Financial difficulties. Real reason. Everyone in Moscow understands. The newspaper touched something forbidden. The editor faces interrogation by the Federal Guard Service. This becomes the first and last time Putin publicly addresses his relationship with Kabayeva. But the story refuses to die. May 2008. Flight records show Kabayeva boarding a private jet belonging to Gennady Timchenko, one of Putin's closest oligarch friends. Destination: Sochi, where Putin is vacationing. By 2011, photographers noticed something on Kabayeva's finger. A ring. The kind worn by married women. She appears at the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics, sitting in the VIP section. Putin attends the same events. Both wear wedding bands. The Kremlin says nothing. Kabayeva's career shifts dramatically. She retires from gymnastics and enters politics, winning a seat in the State Duma as a member of Putin's United Russia Party. From 2007 to 2014, she serves as a loyal deputy. Then she resigns from parliament. A new position awaits. Kabayeva becomes chair of the board of directors at the National Media Group, Russia's largest private media conglomerate. Television channels, radio stations, newspapers. The company shapes what Russians see, hear, and believe. Her salary, according to leaked tax records, $10 million per year. For a retired gymnast, the appointment raises questions. But in Putin's Russia, questions about Kabayeva remain dangerous. Journalists who investigate her face consequences. Editors who publish stories about her lose their jobs. State media ignores her entirely. She becomes Russia's invisible first lady, present everywhere, acknowledged nowhere. The path clears for Kabayeva. Among insiders, the relationship becomes common knowledge. Ilya Rojdestvensky and other journalists understand the truth. It was just pure common knowledge that Alina Kabayeva and Vladimir Putin are together. 2015, a Swiss newspaper breaks an extraordinary story. Reporters claim Alina Kabayeva gave birth at a private clinic in the Swiss city of Lugano. The Sant'Anna Maternity Hospital, one of Switzerland's most exclusive facilities for wealthy Russians seeking privacy and world-class care. For investigator Ilya Rojdestvensky, this is where the real investigation begins. He starts digging through leaked flight records from Russian airlines. He discovers something remarkable. Kabayeva and a Russian gynecologist named Natalia Thibaud traveled together repeatedly in 2014, 2015, 2018, and 2019. Always back and forth between Russia and Switzerland. Thibaud had immigrated to Switzerland 30 years earlier. She worked at the Sant'Anna Clinic. The timeline suggests 2 pregnancies, 2 births, roughly 4 years apart. Spring 2015. The first child arrives at the Sant'Anna Clinic in Lugano, a boy named Ivan. 2019, the second child is born in Moscow. Another boy, Vladimir Jr., both delivered by the same gynecologist, Natalia Thibaud. Press secretaries call the reports fabrication. Official statements insist Putin has only 2 daughters. But the evidence keeps mounting. Ilya gains access to a genealogical tree compiled by Kabayeva's cousin, Ekaterina Golovacheva. The family tree confirms what investigators suspected. 2 sons, Ivan Putin and Vladimir Putin Jr. When the war began, the internet was full of messages claiming Putin had 3 children with Kabayeva. Ilya's source explains. All the media were wrong, except for the Swiss newspaper. They have 2 sons. Ilya discovers job listings on a website called English Nanny seeking teachers for 2 boys whose ages match Ivan and Vladimir Jr. The positions offer accommodation, a 5-day work week, and a salary of €7,700 per month. Teachers are forbidden from leaving the family residence, must undergo extensive medical examinations, and complete a 2 to 3 week quarantine before meeting the family, a protocol introduced during the pandemic and kept afterward. Preference is given to teachers from South Africa, considered a friendly country by the family. The boys also study German, a language personally chosen by Vladimir Putin, who speaks it himself. Together, these details suggest that Vladimir Putin, who claims to live alone, has two sons kept hidden from the public. After 4 hours of travel, Putin's armored train pulls into a deserted platform near Lake Valdai. A helicopter waits on the tarmac. From there, a short flight delivers him to the estate where his sons live. The compound stretches more than 2 miles along the eastern shore. Roads, housing blocks, and luxury mansions line the property. On Google Maps, a massive parking lot shows 80 out of 100 spots filled. Hundreds of people work here. Guards protecting Putin and his family, personal assistants serving Alina Kabayeva, chefs preparing meals, cleaning staff, vessel crews for the boats, teachers, nannies, maids. According to Ilya's sources, Putin now spends more time at Lake Valdai than in the Kremlin. This place has become his unofficial seat of government, a fortress where he conducts state business while his secret family lives nearby. The compound has everything: a private golf course, a movie theater, a private casino, a chapel allegedly called the Church of Saint Vladimir. Ivan and Vladimir Jr. live in a mansion within the estate. They recently relocated from another building called the Presidential Villa. Their lives are strange, isolated, surrounded by adults at all hours. Nannies watch them around the clock. Private tutors teach them languages, music, and academics. Bodyguards from the Federal Protection Service shadow their every movement. The boys can go-kart whenever they want. They have ponies, rabbits, and a saint. Bernard cared for by 2 FSO dog handlers. Ivan, the eldest, loves Disney cartoons. He pretends to be characters from the films, much to his father's displeasure. Putin prefers Soviet-era cartoons, calling Western animation too chaotic. Sometimes Ivan plays hockey with his dad on a private rink inside the compound. The opponents are Putin's bodyguards, and of course they are expected to let the autocrat and his son win. Kabayeva attends these matches but prefers watching from behind opaque glass, hidden from the eyes of servants and staff. The boys rarely see their mother in public settings. When Ivan performs in gymnastics competitions or plays in hockey matches, Kabayeva's cousin Olesya Fedina sits in the audience. Olesya introduces herself as the children's mother to outsiders. But after each event, the boys run past Olesya, to the box hidden behind opaque glass where their real mother sits. The family splits summers between Lake Valdai and a $100 million yacht. They vacation at a designer villa near the Finnish border. They ski in Sochi during winter months. All this while Putin's official salary as head of state sits just over $110,000 per year. The wealth comes from running a corrupt regime. Properties are registered to state companies like Gazprom or loyal oligarchs. The yacht belongs to a sanctioned offshore holding in the Virgin Islands. Putin bankrolls his son's gold-plated isolation with millions stolen from the Russian state. The boys are growing up knowing they are special. Any wish is granted. The residences they live in feel like their personal property. Staff fear Putin, and he is the only one who can discipline the boys. According to sources, Ivan once told his tutors about a particularly memorable moment. When he was born, Vladimir Putin was so happy that he shouted, "Hooray! Finally, a boy." Parental approval seems to be their greatest source of pride. But inside the Gilded Cage, the boys have almost zero contact with children their age. They are cut off from the outside world. They spend most of their time with adults who are paid to keep them entertained. They live like princes in a kingdom of secrets. Ilya Rojdestvensky is far from the first to shine a light on Putin's hidden wealth. In January 2021, opposition leader Alexei Navalny released a bombshell video exposing Putin's secret Black Sea palace near the town of Gelendzhik. The investigation claimed the estate cost over $1.35 billion, built through an elaborate corruption scheme involving Putin's closest allies. The video showed aerial footage captured by drones flying over the heavily guarded compound. It revealed detailed floor plans obtained from contractors who worked on the site. It presented 3D renderings of extravagant interiors that most Russians could only dream of seeing. A casino with gaming tables and slot machines, a theater designed for private performances, an ice rink for personal use, a helicopter pad for quick arrivals and departures, rooms decorated with excessive gilding and double-headed eagles, symbols of Imperial Russia reborn in a dictator's private playground. Navalny called it the world's biggest bribe. The video exploded across YouTube. 20 million views in the first day. 134 million views within weeks. It became one of the most watched investigative documentaries in Russian history. It sparked the largest anti-Putin protests in years. Tens of thousands took to the streets in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and cities across the country. They marched despite a demonstration ban, chanting despite the threat of arrest. Security forces responded with force. Many protesters were violently crushed, thousands were detained. But still they came. Navalny had barely survived a poisoning attempt in August 2020. Agents allegedly applied a nerve agent called Novichok to his underwear. He collapsed on a domestic flight, convulsing in agony as fellow passengers watched in horror. The plane made an emergency landing. He was rushed to a hospital in Siberia, then airlifted to Germany for emergency treatment. For weeks, he lay in a coma. Doctors fought to save his life. Western governments accused the Kremlin of orchestrating the attack. Putin denied any involvement. Navalny recovered. And then he made a decision that stunned the world. He returned to Russia in January 2021, knowing he would be arrested. His plane touched down at Sheremetyevo Airport in Moscow. Police detained him at passport control the moment he landed. They dragged him away in front of journalists and supporters who had gathered to welcome him home. 2 days later, from inside a prison cell, his team released the palace video. The timing was deliberate. The message was clear. Even behind bars, Navalny refused to be silenced. From prison, Navalny continued fighting. He called Putin Vladimir the Poisoner of Underpants. He mocked the president's denials. He urged Russians to raise their voices against the regime, to overcome their fear, to demand accountability from the men who ruled them. Courts added years to his sentence. Authorities transferred him to increasingly remote prisons. Conditions grew harsher. His health deteriorated, but his spirit remained unbroken. In February 2024, Alexei Navalny died in a Siberian prison camp called Polar Wolf. He was 47 years old. Prison officials claimed he collapsed after a walk in the exercise yard. His supporters blamed the Kremlin. The world mourned the loss of Russia's most fearless opposition voice. The Kremlin silences its critics, but secrets still escape. Ilya knows the risks of investigating Putin's family. He has watched colleagues face consequences for digging too deep. Prison sentences handed down on fabricated charges. Exile forced upon those who refuse to stay silent. Poison administered to journalists in foreign cities. Death delivered to those who become too dangerous. Reporters Without Borders ranks Russia 171 out of 180 on the Global Press Freedom Index. 35 journalists currently sit in Russian prisons. At least 37 have been murdered since 2011. The message is clear. Investigate the Kremlin at your own peril. There is danger for me and my family, Ilya admits. I will likely be followed, intimidated. Eventually, I may have to disappear, live quietly without disclosing my location. But he continues anyway. The truth matters more than his safety. Ilya has chosen to keep photographs of Ivan and Vladimir Jr. private. He refuses to publish overly specific details about the boys, their exact locations, their daily routines, their faces. They are children, after all. They did not choose their father. To Ilya, the boys are symbols of how Putin really operates. Secrecy above everything. Public money funneled into private luxury. An entire state apparatus mobilized to hide a family from view. Putin is probably the wealthiest man on earth, Ilya says. He controls a country with vast natural resources. His sons will inherit billions, stolen from ordinary Russians and hidden in offshore accounts and shell companies. But Ivan and Vladimir Jr. are unlikely to inherit the Kremlin itself. Putin is 72 years old. His body is aging. His grip on power, while firm, cannot last forever. Ivan, his eldest son, is only 10 years old. Russian law requires presidents to be at least 35 years old before they can hold office. That means Ivan would have to wait 25 more years to be eligible for the position. A quarter-century of patience before he could even attempt to follow his father's footsteps. I doubt Vladimir Putin will still be in office in 25 years, Ilya explains. Probably still alive, perhaps, but probably gone from power. The mathematics simply do not work. The boys are being raised in luxury, but they are being groomed for wealth rather than leadership. They will inherit money, properties, yachts, and privilege beyond imagination. The political empire belongs to others. The throne of the Kremlin will pass to someone else. To staff at Lake Valdai, Ivan and Vladimir Jr. are the sons of Russia's most powerful man. Children who travel by armored train, private jet, and $100 million yacht. Children whose every need is met by servants who fear their father's wrath. To the Russian public, they are rumors, whispers about a secret family the state works tirelessly to hide. Names mentioned in foreign newspapers, faces that exist in classified files, ghosts who live in palaces surrounded by missile systems. To their father, they are heirs to a stolen fortune, princes of a corrupt kingdom built on lies and looting. Yet behind the fortress walls of Lake Valdai, another Putin exists. A father who plays hockey with his son and lets him win. A man who built playgrounds and go-kart tracks on a militarized estate ringed with anti-aircraft missiles. A leader who hides his sons like state secrets, because in Putin's Russia, everything is a weapon, and family is the greatest vulnerability of all. Ivan and Vladimir Jr. may someday step into the spotlight. The world may learn their faces, hear their voices, watch them grow into men shaped by extraordinary privilege and isolation. Or they may remain shadows forever, ghosts raised in a gilded cage, heirs to an empire built on silence and fear. The Kremlin will continue denying their existence. Press secretaries will dismiss questions. Official biographies will mention only 2 daughters. The apparatus of state secrecy will grind on, protecting the lie. But the truth has already escaped. Vladimir Putin has 2 secret sons, and now